Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon. Oh my goodness, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, that's much better. First of all, my apologies for coming late. I cannot lie. I was locked out of my office. I went to do my yoga, and I invite you to join us. And then after yoga, I went to my office. It was locked. So I don't have access, so I had to wait for people to come and rescue me. So that's why I'm late. I'm so sorry, and really my, sincere apologies. It will never happen. I'm sorry for keeping you waiting. And that's why you didn't want to greet me, right? Well, anyway, good afternoon. I think today will be just filled with some presentations so that the staff, every one of us is aware of what's going on, and and where we are in our programs, in what we're doing, in our staff-related matters. So it's not going to be like before, but it's going to be a regular, sort of reporting on what we have done as a team together, collectively. So without further ado, what I will do is, first of all, I welcome, our staff representative here. She will brief us on everything, what they have done, the task team, in terms of the establishment of the Federation of UN Staff, and also maybe raise some of the matters that was discussed in the council or the task team. And then after that, we'll have a presentation on the UN reform agenda, and the ILO Regional Director, Johnny, would represent us, and he will make a presentation on our behalf. And then we'll have several brief reports on where we stand today. Thank you very much. So I'll pass the floor to Busi. Yeah, it's shorter and sweeter. Okay, Busi.
Thank you very much, Auntie, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Busi Simang, and I'm standing in for Dr. Simpio Mabele, who is from ILO, because ILO is the convener of the task team that has been tasked with establishing the Federation of the Staff Associations for the UN. So I've prepared a very short presentation. In my presentation, I will just take you through the process, where we started and how it came about that we have the task team for the staff association. In terms of the establishment of we call it the FUNSA. Now FUNSA stands for Federation of the UN Staff Association in South Africa. The discussions started in 2016, and I think they were touched a little bit during the Townhall meeting on the 16th of April. And then the first meeting that sought to engage on the FUNSA was held on the 16th of May, 2018. There were 5 staff associations that attended the meeting, and one UN agency, which is UNAIDS, because they do not have a staff association that was present. And it was agreed at that meeting that we should establish a task team. And it was also agreed that this task team will be inclusive, and it will be staff associations plus those agencies that do not have staff associations. It was also agreed at that meeting that those agencies who do not have staff associations should be supported and assisted if they are interested to establish staff associations, because FUNSA is mainly a federation of staff associations and not individuals. So consultations took place with various agencies between May 17 and May 28, and 8 staff associations were identified within the UN in South Africa, and those include those staff associations that are joined, like for instance UN Women and UNICEF and I think UNHRC, collectively they form one staff association. And we also noted that out of the 20 UN agencies, only 10 had staff associations, or only 10 officers had staff members that belong to staff associations. So on the 29th of May, there was then a formal meeting to actually have a task team, which was inaugurated on that day. And on the 29th of May, we had a meeting to discuss the roadmap. Now, this is the task team that was agreed based on the staff associations that were present and who agreed to be part of FUNZA. We also acknowledge that these are not the only staff associations that will form part of FUNZA, but at the moment, it is what is existing. You will see that next to these UN agencies, there are names that are attached to them, and those are people who have agreed, whom we believe have been nominated by their constituencies from the UN agencies where they belong. And we also believe that from the staff associations that are, from the staff associations that are on the left-hand side, it was agreed that ILO will be the convener of this task meeting, this task team. As I said, ILO could not make it today, so as I'm sitting here, I am representing the convener, which is who is from ILO. So my task today was to introduce to you the task team that has been asked to ensure that we will have a federation of staff associations before the end of the year. And the slide that you see here is the actual task team with its members. So on the 29th of May, we then put together a roadmap that outlines what we think needs to be done for us to get there. So if you see, here, this is the 24th of October, which is a UN Day. We are planning to launch the Federation of UN Staff Associations, which is FUNZA, and we are hoping that when we launch it on that day, prior to that, we would have held our first General Assembly. But then if we work it backwards, we started first, we thought the most important thing was for us to inform the resident coordinator of the developments and the task, introduce the task team, and also share with the resident coordinator what the plans were. So that happened on the 7th of June. After that, it was the finalization of the terms of reference for the task team and the dialogues with the agencies, particularly those with no staff associations. We had said that would end by the end of June, but I must say that those discussions are still ongoing. In July, it's information gathering. We know that there are existing FUNZAs globally, and we are busy now looking at these different FUNZAs, how they operate both regionally and globally, and we will analyze these existing FUNZAs and then see which ones or which model will better suit South Africa for us to use for the FUNZA. And then in August, we will allow staff associations to make comments on the documentation that would have been put together, which would be our draft kind of statutes of the FUNZA. And that should end by the end of August. In September, we are hoping that we will then have the General Assembly for the Executive Committee. So this is basically the draft roadmap that we put together, that we thought it will guide the process. And the current staff associations have been involved in this process, and nothing really is cast in stone, because we are also learning as we go along. We have never established a FUNZA before in South Africa. So, as I said, on the 7th of June, we met with the resident coordinator to formally introduce the task team, to discuss the plans and process, and to create a platform where we can have periodic updates. And from the staff associations who were present in that meeting, we acknowledge that we received a very positive response from the regional resident coordinator, And she pledged to support the current staff associations from all different agencies, but not only that, she also pledged to support the establishment of Funza, and we agreed on periodic updates. Now, having said that, the establishment of Funza was going to happen at some point, but it was fast-tracked by the recent salary survey experience, where we realized that there are certain things within the UN that require that collective voice, where we can speak with one voice to be able to discuss issues that affect us all as the UN employees. So that is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now we quickly move on to an address, an update rather, from the UN Games group on preparations for the UN Games.
Thank you, Program Director. Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Bekele-Thomas. I'm from UNICEF. I'm the chairperson for the UN Games, for those who don't know me. Just to give you a quick update, I would like to believe that everybody has registered and is attending the Games. And I got assurance from Madam RC that UNCT members are attending. Thank you very much for that. Okay, quick update from the registration portal. We have about 250 members of UN South Africa that have registered. So we are expecting that all these 250 people, you are included in that number, you attend. The total number so far from all participants that have registered is 1,200. This is from all countries in Africa, 30 countries, and then there's other people that have registered under other. We are not yet aware which country they are coming from, but that is outside Africa. So you are aware that each participant has to pay a registration fee of $70. Just to update you on the deadline, it's 31st July. That's the deadline for your payment. That's your registration fee. That includes your participation, your lunches, and your dinners. Please bring some sort of identification when you attend the Games, your UN card, your national passport, because when you arrive on the 30th, you will do a registration and accreditation at Ingwenyama Lodge. As soon as you arrive, you get your card, participation card, and you will get 2 tickets for your meals for the 2 days. So please bring your card, your identification together with your families, your spouse as well. If they are attending, they should bring an identification as well, because we'll be taking from the list for those that have paid a participation fee and give you your participation card. And then we are encouraging all participants before you depart to do your security clearance, your UNDSS security clearance. We will be starting as from this Friday. Thank you RC for approving us to start this Friday on the Activation Friday. So we are going to send an email this week. We wanted to do it today, but unfortunately we were all kind of busy. But we will send an email to remind all staff. We will start on Friday. We will dress up in sportswear every Friday, starting from this Friday. Okay? This is kind of like a build-up to the Games. And we will also arrange that in different offices, in different buildings, it can be Metro Park or anywhere, between 12:30 and 1:30, we can meet only for 30 minutes to practice our war cry and our songs that we will be singing to support Team SA. Okay, Guys, are you not excited about this? You'll be wearing sportswear every Friday. You're not excited. I am. Okay, because everybody's just staring at me like I'm speaking Greek and you don't look excited at all. Maybe I'm the only one who's excited. Okay, I'm almost done. We have a request, and I'm looking this side. We have a special request from all the agencies. We need financial support. We are requesting that agencies please support your participants with the registration fee, with the bus fee, with the hotel fees. Because we are representing the UN South Africa to participate in these games. And it's very important to us that we go in a large number. And for some of us, it's very expensive for us. We might not afford it. So we are asking that agencies, please, if you can, maybe meet us halfway. I'm also thinking about the drivers who are going to be driving UNCT members to the games. They also need your support. If you are going to be driving to the games and you go with your driver, he might not afford to pay for the accommodation or the registration fee, but you still need him to drive you there. So we are requesting that if you can also support him. Okay, I'm almost done. Lastly but not least, so the UN Games Committee, we've been running around looking for sponsorships. You all know that we host these games without a budget, except the budget that we got from OMT, which is not enough. Even they borrowed us. Thank you, my treasurer. Even the $70 that each participant is going to pay, it's not enough. So at the end of the games, we're going to be owing. So we are requesting that please assist us in getting sponsorships. Fortunately enough, we got approval from the RC's office and from OMT. They assisted us with a letter that we've been sending around for sponsors to assist us. So we are asking all staff, if you know your very rich friends that can sponsor us, please help us. Okay, can I take questions? Okay. Any questions? Comments? Are we all good to go? Are we ready?
Yes.
Sazobalit.
Thank you very much, Bekele. On behalf of UNCT members, I can guarantee you that you have our moral support. All right, we move on. As I said, we do have a number of short presentations from the theme groups. They're going to make it as short as possible, but informative. So we are going to have HIV/AIDS, then gender, PMT, UNCG, OMT, and Sustainable Development Goals. We'll start with HIV/AIDS. I think we are going to start with something more interesting that involves all of us, especially as staff members. You have all heard about UN reforms. So we're going to have the ILO brief us on where we are with UN reforms.
So I was volunteered. And when the call came, I asked myself, why me? And then I thought, maybe it's my height. And as I'm trying to squeeze through here, and then I thought, finally, I think the RC saw my nice scarf. Let me start by a disclaimer. None of us is a specialist on UN reform. I think all of us have received lots of communication on UN reform. This I'm quoting from the program director. He asked me to say that at the beginning. So we are assist with reform. We are in the process of reform. Mine is to just assist in walking through a PowerPoint that I think we've all seen and flag some things that are definitely going to affect our working lives. Then, at this point, I realized why I was chosen to do this. We are the ILO, we care about the workplace, and change that affects the workplace must be with the highest form of transparency and the highest form of communication with those who will be affected by the change. So I'll share, and then maybe we can raise issues and concerns if we have any. And I'll just try to walk through it very quickly. So there are the 7 pillars, the 7 blocks. The first talks about maximizing the UN development system impact. Of course, it's talking about the SDGs, Agenda 2030. Then it's about the new generation of country teams. Maybe we'll spend a bit more on this one because it will affect us directly. A reinvigorated RC system, a reconfigured regional approach that may affect some agencies more than others, more accountable leadership and better governance, a system-wide approach to partnerships, and finally a new funding compact. So what does this mean? I'll just try to animate some of this. I hope those who are at the back, are you all able to see at the back there? So the first issue is that we'll have a new generation of UN cities. And the key issue is that they'll be demand-driven. And that means they're tailored to the national priorities. Of course, you may ask, what are the national priorities? Well, they're encapsulated in the national development plans of the countries that we work in. So the significance of determination of priorities through national development plans is going to increase in determining what kind of country teams we have on the ground and what kind of physical presence of agencies is required. And in that regard, the UNDAP, which we have already been working with, is now going to be an even more critical tool. And that means that most of our work programs must find themselves within the UNDAP. And so the teams that have been working on it, the good news is that work is going to get even more important. Tailor-made country presence, facilitated by the RC through open and inclusive dialogue. Of course, that means there will have to be choices that have to be made, driven by the country priorities, driven by the RC. Yes, I can hear some of you thinking, so that means some agencies may not be demanded in some of the countries. Implemented through commonly agreed criteria. The national needs, I've already talked about that. Objective criteria and thresholds for country presence based on the SDGs. Member state consultation on UN city composition. Open consultative process including RCs, UN cities and host governments. And that says that the relationship between the UN and the national government is going to be even more critical than it has been. And areas where we may have had bottlenecks are definitely now having to really be addressed to ensure that this dialogue on the physical presence is addressed. What do they look like? So there will be co-representation, there will be co-location, joint programming. That means we're going to work together even more. That means joint programs and joint approach to national partners is going to be the norm rather than the exception. country level common back office as default option. Let me just repeat that one. Country level common back office. What does that mean? It means that we are going over time to be integrated in terms of our finance and admin, in terms of our drivers, which were being discussed, in terms of the vehicles that we have, in terms of our HR assistants, in terms of our management of all our facilities. We are scattered right now. The move is that we are going to be commonly located and better integrated over time. When we discussed this at the ILO, I think there was a lot of concern that there's a phrase which is not listed here, that it is not anticipated that people will lose their jobs. I didn't say it, and after the meeting everybody said, but that's the phrase, Johnny, that we wanted to hear. So far, as to the best of our knowledge, this reform will not result in a loss of jobs. I think that should be said. And please mind that I just put that disclaimer to the best of our knowledge, and so far. How it will pan out in the future, we really can't say. But for now, the move is not going to affect people's jobs. Let me move to the... So common back office, that's already highlighted. Greater use of common premises, and the percentage there is indicated. And business operations implementation, joint work, greater efficiency, synergies, and coherence. I think we've already highlighted this. What does the reinvigoration of the UN and the RC system actually mean? That means the RC will be dedicated, independent, impartial, empowered, and de-linked from the UNDP system, and de-linked from the resident representative function. So there will be a dealing between the RC and the UNDP system. There will be greater authority to the RC and greater leadership from the RC. And the RC system will report directly to the Secretary General. There will be system-wide accountability, mutual and collective performance appraisal. A lot of us directors have already started to do joint appraisal with the RC in most of the countries that we are functioning in. That is going to increase, and that will mean that eventually all UN staff appraisal systems will be integrated. I think right now we are probably very well integrated. But over time that will be integrated. The issue of funding is also particularly key. The integrated system will, of course, need much greater predictable funding, and that has been a major preoccupation in the debates, if you have read all the reports. So there's a fund to be established, and that there will be cost sharing to support. I don't want to belabor the funding issue, but to say that I think there's been a major challenge on capacitating the RC function. It's going to be invigorated, therefore it will need to be much more clearly, predictably funded, and a particular model has been put on the table. And that will be, I think that will not really affect most of us in our operations. There will be local oversight and management of the RC system. And I think most of us were already working. I think Jacqueline is somebody that most of us also there. And if they met there, you can imagine that over time, it will trickle down theory. It will all come down to us. So we have to say the vision of this reform is that we are going to be more integrated and we are going to work together even more. It will improve monitoring and reporting on a system-wide basis. I think quite a number of us had already started with this. We were asked what contributions are we making to the State of the Nation address by President Ramaphosa. We are all already going to have to work with system-wide results which are monitored collectively. And our collective contribution will be presented much more. Member states will provide inputs on changes to governance structures and functioning of the boards. I think particularly for agencies like ourselves, this is going to be quite an interesting process to see exactly how it will work. There will be a revamped regional approach. That's an interesting one as well. May not directly affect too many of us, some of us. But essentially to say that, we have regional bodies, SADC, EAC, COAS, we have the African Union. One question is how will the UN in an integrated manner interact with these regional bodies? But we know that there's also the ECA in Addis. How will all of this, we know that many agencies have regional locations. We were asking, we had a session in the ILO and we were asking, our headquarters just moved from Addis to Abidjan. Good luck. I imagine sooner or later they'll have to find themselves locating back. I mean, it will take time, but it's clear that that's where we have to be better aligned and more linked to the regional architecture. And this will be discussed more, I think, at the episode next year. Moving ahead. So, there is a fund on, thank you, Mr. Program Director, thank you for realizing I needed assistance. There is a fund. So the funding will be, there will be funding to make this happen. Change costs money. There is a fund that is being put together. And I think most of it will not really affect us, so I may not want to spend too much time on this, but suffice it to say that there is a move to ensure that the RC system is much better and more clearly funded upfront, and that will involve, I think, contributions from the system and the agencies. So, in practical terms then, what is the key message coming to an end? That there's going to be transition to reposition the UN system. The RSC will be reinvigorated. There will be dual reporting between RSCs and UNCT. So for a while we will have dual reporting to our agencies and to the RSC system, but you can see that over time it's going to be much more streamlined. There will be new generation country teams driven by country priorities. We have talked about the consultative approach, the RC at the lead. There will be a two-phased approach in repositioning the work at the regional level. There will be system-wide transparency and accountability, and including stronger capacities for system-wide reviews and joint executive board structures. There will be a hybrid funding model. There will be proposals for funding, the funding compact to improve the predictability of resources for the development system. Management of the RC system by UNDOC, reporting directly to the DSD. I think these are the main elements that you can talk from this presentation. If my scarf didn't catch you, I hope these words have caught you. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Johnny, for that enlightening presentation. Any questions, any comments? You may not have questions or comments today, but in the days and weeks and months to come, as the system unfolds, I think we have many questions which will need to be clarified. All right, we move on to the next item on our program. We have a short presentation for update on HIV/AIDS.
Thank you. I asked to come first because I have another appointment that I need to go on in a little while. But good morning, everybody. I don't have, unfortunately, I don't have this scarf, but I think you can still see me. I just wanted to update you on one of the UN joint programs. Taking on from what we've been told about the new reforms. And just to remind everybody that UNAIDS was set up as a joint program from the onset. So I think it's important that this collectively we all get to know where we are. In 2016, the UN General Assembly had a special session on HIV, which was trying to take forward the SDG commitment number 3, the goal number 3, in terms of how we're going to try to end AIDS as a public health threat by 2030. And out of that, countries then develop their own specific national programs. And in South Africa, we have a new national strategic plan, which runs from 2017 to 2021. And again, that links to the reforms that we have, that increasingly we're going to be expected to act on national priorities as defined in their own national planning documents. And this is exactly what we are doing. So in terms of what we are doing as a joint team, is a very active joint team, the HIV one, is we have been supporting the development of implementation plans of this national strategy. And this is actually being developed both at provincial and at district level, taking the approach that we need to be focused on where the epidemic is. And I think this is important because I think HIV, for all of us here, we should know that it's an ongoing emergency in this country with more than 7 million people today living with HIV. So I think that this is a very important piece of work that we're doing with. And secondly, just to update you that in terms of supporting the government around resource mobilization for this response, the joint team, the UN joint team, is actually working in supporting government both technically and financially to develop a new funding proposal for the Global Fund. And in fact, that proposal will be finalized on the 19th of this month and submitted. So I think it's one area that we need to know that we are working on. The third area that I thought I should also brief you on is that during the State of the Nation address, the President announced a number of programs that need our support as the joint program. The key one was that South Africa has decided that for the next 2 years, precisely the next 18 months, we will put 2 million additional people on treatment on HIV. That's a mammoth task. And we are expected as a joint team in the UN to support the government around this program. And finally, also just to say that tomorrow, the RC will join the Minister of Health and the Minister of Science and Technology to launch a new survey by the HSRC, which will help us to take stock on where the South Africa epidemic is. It's a major survey that has been undertaken. HSRC does that every 5 years, and they've just completed the 5th survey. And I think it's going to be important for you to follow on what is happening to this epidemic. And finally, just to say that we, as the joint team, most of us are going to be going to the International AIDS Conference as part of the national delegation. South Africa has a delegation of about 100 going to the International AIDS Conference led by the Deputy President himself, who chairs the National AIDS Council. So there are a number of things that we are doing collectively to support the national response. And again, in the spirit of the reforms and the SDGs, working on this particular SDG number 3 around HIV and TB. Just one last thing to remind everybody that today there are 2 major debates in this country. Is the land reforms and is the NHI, the National Health Insurance. And again, as part of the broader joint team around health, a number of us are involved in actually supporting the government around the implementation of the National Health Insurance. So this is where I'd like to end with my update. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Any questions, comments? If not, we move on quickly to gender. Do we have any?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Zenat from Unique Pretoria, but also a member of the Gender Theme Group. And since her apologies, as UN Woman, she is the chair of, or UN Woman is the chair of the Gender Theme Group, but unfortunately, she's unable to make it. As many of you would know, the Secretary General has made a number of comments, reports with regards to the issue of sexual harassment within the United Nations. And taking that into consideration, the gender-themed group has said that sexual harassment in the UN workplace is a priority, and the gender-themed group would like to put forward a proposal to the UNCT, which will include an anonymous survey to understand the extent of it, as well as establish a call line to be used if necessary. Other issues that are on the agenda include training of the UN Gender Scorecard, Gender Mirror, and Gender Seal. And of course, many of you know that Women's Month is coming up next month, which is like in 2 weeks' time. And it will include sessions on gender-based violence and women's economic empowerment. Also, we'd also like to take the opportunity to thank those men that participated in the 100-Man March against, or taking a stand against, gender-based violence. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Zinat, for such a concise presentation. Any questions, comments? If not, we move on to PMT, a short update from PMT.
Thank you, Musemba. Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm Walid, the chair of the program management team, which consists essentially of the heads of programs from each of the 17 agencies in South Africa. PMT reports clearly to the UNCT, and its main responsibility is to enable the implementation of the Strategic Cooperation Framework, or SCF, which I'm sure you're all familiar with and know line and verse. The SCF, as you know, was adopted from 2013 and ran until 2017. And has been extended until actually March 2019 to align with the planning frameworks of government. And currently there are discussions with the government to extend it for a further year to allow us to actually ensure that not only are we aligning chronologically, but aligning substantively with the medium-term strategic framework of government. With the recent developments in the country, the process for the development of the next 5-year plan remains a little bit under very close circles in government. So we need to engage and interact with that. And the PMT is that coordination structure within the UN here in South Africa to allow us to program. So we're basically looking at two things. One, essentially enabling the implementation of the current SCF, but also leading towards the development of the next SCF. The PMT also works in very close collaboration with the results groups, which are the other substantive pillars that are actually looking at joint programming. We've heard from the joint team on AIDS, and we've heard from the gender theme group. But there are 4 pillars to the current SCF. One is on inclusive growth and decent work. The second one is on sustainable development. The third one is on human capabilities. And the fourth is on governance and participation. There are 11 key result areas and many, many other outputs. And each of these 4 pillars of the SCF is led by a certain head of agency and a certain agency. So ILO leads the inclusive growth and decent work. UNEP leads the Sustainable Development Results Group. UNICEF leads the human capabilities, and UNDP leads the governance and participation. So within each of the results groups, this is where the implementation of our joint work and joint programs essentially takes place. There have been challenges across the various results group over time, and I think we need to acknowledge the challenges of working together, and I think the impetus given by these UN reforms force us now, obviously, to re-look at how we work and what we do collectively with certainly increased importance. The PMT has also, in recent months, led some key strategic work collectively, including the evaluation of the current SCF. And for those of you that may not have seen or read it, there is an evaluation that was done in 2016 and 2017 to assess the impact of the implementation of the current SCF. Many recommendations that have been made will need to then be brought into the discussion with the government as we look to the formulation of the next SCF. Also, as mandatorily required by the UN country teams in the lead up to the development of a new UNDAF or a new strategic framework, we've done a common country analysis, the CCA, which would then inform our problem analysis and definition of key priorities for the coming SCF. So we do have a CCA, but now in light of the extension, there will be a need to relook at those priorities together with our partners in government to determine what would inform the next SCF, which is the critical basis for the new generation of country teams and those issues that we've heard presented in the earlier presentation. One of the key things that I think we've all struggled with here is to have a functioning coordination mechanism with the government of South Africa. At a technical level and at an agency level, I think we all know that we have very good relations with WHO, with the Ministry of Health, UNICEF, with the Department of Social Development, and so on and so forth. But it remains fairly siloed within the government and within the agency-government relationship. But we have struggled to have a structure that brings all of government and all of UN together at an apex level. This is one of the things that we've been working very, very hard in the last couple of years actually to address. And I think we're at a critical space where, as a UN, and this was one of the initiatives championed by the PMT, is to sign an MOU with the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, which is at the center of government in as far as the National Development Plan of the country is concerned and the coordination around the implementation and monitoring and evaluation of the NDP. So there is a process that's been underway, and we hope that the RC will soon sign an MOU with the Minister and the Presidency that will give much greater emphasis and scale to a coordination structure jointly between the UN and the government at a central level. I think this will certainly help to expedite things, our annual reviews of progress and what our agencies and our collective joint work is contributing to in terms of supporting national outcomes and national objectives. But this has been a very missing part of our engagement with the government of South Africa, which in many other countries the UN actually takes for granted and needs to be there. Another one of the key initiatives that PMT has seen was our collective support to the domestication of the SDGs. I'm not going to speak to that. Our colleague Msingati Sepuka, who is our SDG advisor, will speak to that. But this was an initiative of the PMT to make sure that collectively we have one support program to help the government domesticate the SDGs here in the country, in line with the globally agreed framework, which is called MAPS, which the UN Development Group has come up with, and we'll hear more about that from Bisigati shortly. Just very recently, last week, the PMT had a two-day retreat actually at the request of the UN country team. Very good participation from across the agencies with a lot of very strong and clear recommendations on how we can improve, how we can prioritize our contributions. People have spoken about the SONA. We have a CCA. We have some results that are working better than others. So how do we take all of these developments that inform our priority setting for the remaining period of the current SCF so that we can try and rationalize and become more effective. So these were among the key things that were discussed at the retreat last week, and there'll be recommendations that will be tabled to the UNCT to help us refine our work going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Walid. Any comments, questions? If not, we move on to UNCG, which is the United Nations Communications Group, and as the chair of UNCG, I'll give you a quick update. We had a media breakfast meeting with SABC senior executives and UNCT members. We asked the UNCT members to bring along with them members of the communications group from their agencies. It was a very successful meeting, well attended, and we actually got some concrete and practical suggestions from the meeting. SABC agreed to give us time on their radio, TV programs, on educational programs that all agencies in this country will be participating. So we should be holding discussions with them fairly soon to discuss the modalities on how that's going to work. We are also planning a media training for both UNCT members and members of the UNCG. We have had positive responses from the trainers, a private company. Part of the training is going to be on a pro bono basis, and part of it we have to pay a little bit. We are also planning a training on social media. I know there are a lot of us who are involved in social media campaigns, but there are also some of us who might need a little bit of leg up. I have been in discussions with the social media group in New York that runs the UN social media platforms. They've agreed to give us a presentation fairly soon. It's really up to us to decide how soon we want to have it, but we are looking at something like next week. So we will be informing members of the UNCG for the presentations. And then, as you know, this week there are a lot of activities scheduled for Mandela Day. Tomorrow there will be the annual Mandela Lecture, as you know, to be addressed by President Obama. A number of you will be participating in that lecture, those who were able to register early. And then on the 18th, on Wednesday, there is UN will be participating in the refurbishment of the YMCA in Orlando, Pretoria. Soweto. Yes, Pretoria. So, but I'm not too sure. I heard that it has been postponed to sometime in August. We will let you know. But on that Wednesday also, there will be an elders walk at the Constitution Hill, starting at 10.
Half past 12.
Half past 12, sorry. Starting at half past 12. So those of you who want to participate in the walk will be preceded by a video message from President Obama. We'll be sending you more information on the logistics of it. That's all I have from UNCG. Any questions, comments?
The 702 walk the talk.
Oh, yeah. There is also the 702 walk on the 22nd of July. A number of you, not a lot, a few actually, you were a bit disappointed that people do not want to walk. So we have a few who will be participating in the 702 walk the talk, and will be carrying UN banners, flags, and all the paraphernalia. If there aren't any questions, we move on to the next theme group, which is yeah, sure.
I think in terms of communication, each one of us that work in the UN, who are UN staff members, should be able to communicate. Communication is very critical and very important in all what we're doing. The values of the UN should be promoted by each one of us, and we have to really be able to communicate all the good things that we are doing. But it's not for us, actually, it's not to be visible, but really to make sure that we make an impact as a person, individually as well as collectively. So I encourage staff members to really be on Twitter account. You have your Twitter accounts. Could we all tweet today? Can we start doing that? It's very important because the whole idea of the social media is the fact that we can be able to touch millions of people, at one go. It's not for promoting ourselves, but mostly promoting our projects, our values, our principles. It's very critical. So this whole training about Twitter is important, Masimba. I think if we have it, we can do it online. And we should also start having communication programs developed by the UNCG for all staff. Would that be okay?
That's very okay.
Yeah, because it's very important, really. I mean, I know that UNICEF does it, but there are agencies that do not do it. So, we can even borrow examples of UNICEF, and UNHCR does it. I don't know whether they do it here, but in most cases, UNHCR, UNICEF, they are very good in communication. And we have already borrowed their experts and be able to train each and every staff member in the UN on how to communicate, developing their skills of communication, and also usage of social media.
Thank you, Arasi. The new SG, the Secretary General, has been saying it over and over again that we all need to be involved in digital storytelling. That means using social media. And you can use your own private social media to communicate what you are doing. And as most of you know, the Global Citizen is planning for a campaign, for a festival on the 2nd of December. And people like Beyonce, Jay-Z will be coming. The tickets are free. You just need to register. And when you register, you have to do some practical work, some work for the community, work on SDGs, and in the process, you earn points. And those points, you'll be able to use them to buy a ticket to the festival. All right, we move on. We have a presentation from OMT.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, I'm talking here on behalf of Mafuzu Swazi. She's our new OMT chair, but she was not able to come here. For OMT, we're working on several items. We are supporting PMTs. Normally, we don't talk too much as procurement, as operations. We act. But local service survey, the construction of the building. So our option then will to be staying in this private owner premises for the time they finish on building the UN campus.
Thank you, Aya. I'm now going to ask, are there any questions? Finally, we have questions.
Thank you. My question is based on the local salary survey because of, I see now we're going for the third year or second year. I don't know when until we get our reply. My question is, because now we're close to another local salary survey for this year, and then now we are delayed with the letters. When the letters are they going to come? And when are we going to get our results? As we have now, we have to start to know what is taking place for this year. And then also, what methodology system are you going to use are we still going to use the same methodology system of the delay, or are we still going to get a new system of data, or who's going to run the show?
Can we take another question in? More questions?
Thank you. My question is about the move. I'm sure it's just an interest to every staff member. Are you going to allow enough time for staff members to organize, especially those who have children already in schools and all the stuff? Will you give enough time for staff members to sort of like reorganize themselves, all the logistics and etc.? Or is it too early to talk about the details? Thank you.
Any other question? Okay, we'll ask Yaya to respond to the two questions.
Okay, for the salary survey, as you, it's based on your recommendations. That the letter that was sent to New York was drafted by the federations and the local salary survey committee, it was really to echo what staff wanted. So the response is sent. We are waiting feedback from headquarters. We are working with them to get the information. But until we got the final result, the new salary survey interim will not be conducted. So first we have to have final result. And now with this letter, it may delay or not. I don't know. I'm not in the ICC numbers, but we should have it in mind. We cannot go to the next interim salary survey until we got the final result. But everything is in the headquarters. We will push, and if you got any new information, we share it with you. Regarding the move, to be honest, it's not. I didn't think about it, and it was not also discussed at the OMT level. For me, it's too early to discuss about it because we don't know even when we're going to move. We don't know yet. It's up to the government. But the day we got the approval from the government, then we will discuss among us to see how best we will do to have a coherent and a very good move.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions?
No, I think I'll just.
We hear from the RSC.
On the salary survey thing, I think, it's, the concern is a mutual one. We are as concerned as you all are. We made a mistake from the very beginning and we have to accept it. And we have collectively agreed that we will not repeat the same mistake. We'll have interest in matters, affecting us altogether, and be really well organized to respond, because the mistake was from the very beginning. Now that the mistake has been done, we are trying, together with the task team, I remember having a meeting with the task team. They brought a draft letter which indicated in a very objective way why this result, the draft result actually, it was a draft one, it was an initial one, is not really, does not respond to the situation in this country. And I signed it on behalf of the staff and on my own behalf and sent it to ICC. You have to know that salary surveys, they are not at the prerogative of the country office here, nor the leadership here. It's done at the headquarters level. ICSC is in charge. What we have been doing is on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, since we sent that letter, follow up and say, listen, we are very anxious. Staff is anxious. We need a response, and we will push in that direction. But I want you to know that we are as concerned as you are, and we would like to get good result that would be, you know, satisfactory to all of us. So I want to really reiterate that it's not my prerogative, it's not OMT's prerogative, it is really at their discretion, and you know, they have their systems, they have their methodologies and whatever. What we have suggested as content in the letter, and I think that letter should be shared to all staff, is we said rather than using the normal survey comparators, we will from now on suggest that we take the CPI as, you know, the as our survey methodology rather than going to the comparator companies. Okay? So that is one of the suggestions we have sent them. There is an indication that they will consider it, but let's just wait, and you know, we will push, you know, for some kind of decision from their end. Yes, because you know, the fact of the matter, like Yahya said and like you insinuated, is the fact that unless we put closure to this, we will not go into the second one. So we will have, you know, really problems. So we are pushing, we have to really push for that, and we will do that. On the move, we requested to move because of security reasons. And we pushed, and this has been something when I went into the file, it's not even now, it's been something that was discussed long time ago. Letters after letters after letters to the government, because the government pays for our office accommodation. Luckily this time, we are making headway. When we receive a response, and if we receive, I think it's not if, but when we receive a response, a favorable response, there are two implications. One is the lease. We cannot tell them, oh, extend the lease because we want to stay until we are organized. I think we have to be honest. So that would be impossible. The second one is really we are in dire need. I mean, you know, from what I hear, the security situation is not good, and you know, and where we are is not good enough for us to stay. And some of our agencies will have to be left. And from headquarters, they're asking us to move into one location. So we cannot delay it. So I think, you know, we start, each one of us, and I understand the constraints, you know, but each one of us should really think and in anticipation make a plan B. So I don't want to give false hope, you know, because we have constraints, and we need to really, the moment they say, yes, you have to move, we will have to move, because we will not be able to, you know, extend the lease, or we will not be telling them to extend the lease, and then, you know, they will think that we are not serious at all. So I think we are at the mercy of the government's goodwill, and we will have to move when we move. Now, I think what we can give you is a rough estimate, okay, of when this would happen. I don't see it happening like in a week, in 2 weeks. I see it happening in 3 months from now.
For December?
Yeah, before December or around December. So, you know, if we move before December, we would have our Christmas party in our new location. So, you know, but just anticipate in line with that. Okay, thank you very much. Then, you know, just to go again, you know, because of MT and staff-related things, you know, there were many promises at the beginning of this year when we discussed, and some of the things have been done, as you know. You know, we have to really give recognition to the team, the choir that we have established, and we encourage them in terms of our own, activities. There are many things that are happening. There is a yoga class that is 12:30 to 1:30 now in Metro Park every Mondays and Wednesdays. Please join us. It's lovely. It's wonderful. And I promise I will never be locked out and come late. And there is a Pilates that will start also. We'll have to circulate that, OMT and the group the wellness group will circulate the information. And we will have also a salsa class for those of you that want to dance. Because I gather that, our men in the UN do not want any yoga. I don't know why. We haven't tried you for Pilates, but I'm sure you would love to dance, so we'll put you in dance classes. Please, let's organize ourselves and make sure that, we are active while we're working, our body needs to move a little bit. So that is the thing. And also the UN Games, we didn't really recognize them. I think they have done a wonderful job, and I would really like to thank them, and they need recognition. Yeah, that's it from the ONC here. Yeah, maybe I should give a floor to my.
Okay, thank you very much. Just wanted to address two issues. The first one was the one regarding the move. I think there is a lady who was raising a concern about the schools and everything. I just want to say that as a staff association, we are noting that, and we will be discussing with the UN management to make it as smooth as possible. And RC, just to put this into perspective, usually when you have children, you arrange a school sometimes close to where you work, so that at 5 o'clock when you knock off, you are able to pick up the kid or arrange the drop-off and all that. So I think what is important, what would be helpful, is for us to know the address well ahead of time, acknowledging that in South Africa, the school year starts in January, so that people are able to start looking for schools for the beginning of next year, timely, because the schools close end of November. I'm just highlighting this as very critical. Yeah. So I'm just highlighting this to say maybe it's things that we need to discuss just to ensure that that transition is smooth even when it happens. And then the second one, I just wanted to make a comment around the salary survey to say that as the resident coordinator had mentioned, we have had discussions and they have pledged their support in the discussions around it. But I wanted to highlight two things. There are two different issues regarding the salary survey. The first one is the current results, which we know that employees are not happy about, primarily because we believe as a staff association the data that was collected cannot have been accurate because of the method that was used, looking at how South Africa does their benchmark. And then the second one is the issue of process, the entire process of doing a salary survey moving forward. And we are hoping that that has to change in a way that would accommodate how things are done in the country, and in a way that acknowledges that the competency around doing the salary survey does not exist in the UN. So the manual that currently is being used, we believe, needs to be revamped and reviewed drastically in order for it to accommodate the current issues here in South Africa. And the last one as well, as a staff association, we were challenging the huge difference between the outcome of a salary survey for international staff and national staff. The difference is just too big it's too big for any reasonable explanation that can be given, especially because the cost of living is the same for both. And we just believe that those injustices and inequalities we have to begin to talk about those things. Because for a very long time, the discrepancies have existed and no one has ever had the courage to speak about them and challenge them. The difference is just way too much. We understand that the methodologies are different, but we need to talk about those differences which we believe are really, really unequal and result in unreasonable injustices. So that would be my comment from the Staff Association.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? This will be the last question. Unfortunately, we are running out of time.
I'm just going to ask again. The question has been asked already, but I didn't get the answer clearly. Moving forward, the salary survey, my brother there said, who's going to run the show? Is it going to be the FUTSAs, or will it still be the local salary survey committee that is made of all the other agencies?
Thank you.
For the local service survey, I think it's, we all know the methodology. It's driven by headquarters, by ICSC. The work is done by international staff who is not here, who is sent by headquarters. So the local salary committee members, they are not involved in the data. They are involved just to facilitate the process, to identify the biggest payers in this country, because these people are outside, they cannot know the local market. So we, as a local staff, we know which companies are paying best in this country, so that we select 10. For example, in South Africa, we should have selected the 20 best payers that we think in South Africa. And then when the consultant arrives, he will select among those 20 the best 15. And then we help them also to collect the information. But they have their process, they have their tools to do the calculation, and we are not involved in those calculations. So in any case, we need people here who know the market to support ICSC. But the process is done by headquarters ICSC, and they have their own personnel who will come here, who come to support and to do the survey. We are here just to facilitate and to help these people. But as he said, going forward, we express we mess what we want, but we cannot just predict here that they're gonna approve what we requested. But if they approve, then the next salary survey will be based on the CPI. We just go to the World Bank, we get the data, and then they will do the calculation. Or we also have requested that they approve us here to buy data, like they did in, they are doing in Mauritius or in some countries in Latin America. Because of the local market here, people, companies, they buy data from specialized companies to do the salary survey. So we have proposed these two options. We are pushing for them, but we don't know what we're going to do. So they can come back, say, okay, unless we have our next General Assembly or meeting, the methodology will continue. You're going to continue with salary survey with EU comparators. So don't be surprised for that option. But we will push to have what we want for the group.
Thank you. I will now give the floor to you and then the RC.
Okay, thank you. Maybe just to respond to that question that says who's going to run the show. From the Staff Association point of view, the Staff Association cannot do the salary survey, but the Staff Association should have good and appropriate representation within the local salary survey committee. So there is a local salary survey committee for South Africa, for the UN South Africa, that has been established. And one of the things that we discussed with the resident coordinator is the constituency of that salary survey. We think that it needs to be reviewed. We need good representation, and we also need good representation from the staff association, which will then influence how things are done. So the staff association cannot do it. There is the committee that has to do it. As he said, and I'm going to repeat it, the staff association is completely not happy with the issue of choosing comparators. We cannot choose comparators by virtue of convenience. Comparators cannot be chosen because my uncle works in a certain company, or my friend's son earns more than my cousin's son, therefore I choose the other comparator. We feel that we need people who went to school to do salary surveys, who get paid every month to do salary surveys. We need to be able in this country to use those people to support us as the UN to do salary surveys properly, not the way we are doing. So that is the position of the staff association. But as he said, negotiations are going on, and we are hoping that at a later stage we will be able to collectively have come to a reasonable, possible, doable methodology moving forward.
The RC has opened the floor and given us a chance to ask a few more questions or comments.
Presentation on SDGs and let's close because of the time.
All right, I will now ask Singlet to talk about sustainable development goals.
No, thanks very much. Yeah, I've always got the pleasure actually of presenting last. And whenever that happens, I have to wrap it up because we are almost out of time. Yeah, and I see that there are colleagues that are already here. So I'm going to be very quick. Yeah, I'll try and summarize my presentation. One, our function is to support the South African government around the localization of the SDGs. And I think our approach around that has been to build key partnerships with relevant constituencies and stakeholders. So I'm just going to run through the key ones in terms of the critical partnerships that we have to build, that we continue to work around in terms of the localization agenda. The first one is that we are working very closely with the government of South Africa through the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. And I think the key issue in that regard is for us to try and establish what we call a national coordinating mechanism, which is going to be some form of national committee that is going to be driving the localization of the SDGs in South Africa. That remains a critical issue that is outstanding, but there seems to be promising work that is happening in that regard, and we're hoping that there will be a cabinet resolution taken around the establishment of that particular committee within at least maybe the next couple of months. So we have our eye on that as we go forward. Then the second element around which we are basing the work that we're doing on the SDGs is around civil society. The UN has supported a civil society working group that is primarily organized around the SDGs to try and see how civil society can fit into the whole schema of ensuring that they play a specific role in terms of driving the SDGs from below. And that particular group is led by a group called Africa Monitor, but I think that does not necessarily exclude individual agencies to continue working directly with their own partners in the civil society space in terms of driving the SDGs. Then I think critically, there is interesting developments that are on the go in terms of partnerships and relationships with academia in the country around SDGs, and specifically in relation to that, we have a partnership with the University of Pretoria, where we have been able to support the establishment of an SDG Knowledge Hub. So that is work that is in progress, and the UN is represented in the steering committee of that SDG Knowledge Hub as a support entity. Then private sector has been identified as a critical partner in terms of driving implementation particularly from a finance and funding perspective.
So we are also prioritizing that. Our main entry point in that relation is through our partnership with the UN Global Compact, but also we are pushing for our own direct specific partnerships with the private sector in that regard. In August, I think we are going to be hosting the private sector breakfast where we're going to be engaging the private sector around the SDGs. Then there are critical areas that we think are important for us to focus on as we go forward. One is how do we partner with local government in terms of ensuring that the SDGs are really anchored at the point of delivery of services to the people. Because really at the end of the day, if you speak water, energy, and all of those other issues like sanitation and services, those are provided by municipalities. So we want to work as close as possible in that regard with the local government sector. We've looked at a possible partnership with the South African Local Government Authority, which is SALGA, and I think we haven't said it to us. We will set up a meeting for you with the President of SALGA sometime this week so that you can have a discussion with him around the role of local government in that regard. Interesting development is around labor. ILO has provided us with a good lead in terms of engaging labor. Last week on Friday, I had a session with COSATU, which is the biggest trade union federation in the country, around the role of labor in ensuring that they also get into the bandwidth of the SDGs, with the hope that the conversations around labor will extend beyond COSATU and include all the other federations, and we're working with the ILO around that. Then there's a provincial focus. We've been in the process of talking to the Gauteng provincial government around the focus of the SDGs at a provincial level. Then there's a specific focus around the role of legislatures in oversight. There's been an interesting development where the UN has been requested by the Northwest Provincial Legislature to support them around formulating their approach towards oversight of the SDGs, specifically in that province. So we're going to be supporting that process. Then, then I think from a communications point of view, I don't know if colleagues have been able to see that, we have actually developed a communications instrument for the SDGs, which is an SDG bulletin. It's probably going to be going into its 4th month of publication now. We've had bulletins focusing on issues of youth. We've had bulletins focusing on poverty, and I think in the next coming month of July, we will be focusing on SDGs and science, technology, and innovation. So those are the key highlights that I just thought that I should bring to the fore.
Thank you very much, Msingaji. I will now ask the RC to give us a concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thanks so much for the participation. Again, my apologies for coming late, but I thought, well, anyway, there's no excuse I can give. But I think that the meeting has, gone very well. The objective of this meeting, this kind of briefing, is to put all staff members at the same level of understanding and awareness of what the UN is doing. Because there are times when you're asked in the streets, okay, where do you work? UNICEF. What does UNICEF do? Maybe you can have answers. But then when you are asked what does UN in general in South Africa, that's the needs of the UN, meaning each staff member will have at least a general knowledge of what we have done, what we have accomplished together. So that's